Is the source of all life and manifests itself in and through the spirit in love, light, power, and universal wisdom. The spiritual principle in the human being, the spirit spark, is an element of this divine source, as it originates from the field of the eternal gnosis. Therefore, our true calling and task as human beings is to connect or reconnect with this eternal divine source so that we may be guided by it and it may become the source and direction of our consciousness and our life. Our longing to be reconnected with this source, therefore, follows the natural law of like attracts like. The divine element within us is calling us to reunite with the divine realm that permeates the universe, with which it is one. And this unity is possible on the basis of our inner longing to undergo the necessary transformation, the fundamental reversal of our consciousness, our attitude of life, so that it is orientated to the same polarity as that of the inner other one, the divine element within us that is one with the all.
Throughout these inward journeys, we have talked about the inner calling from the divine aspect in our heart, the spirit spark aspect. Once you have recognized this inner calling and your personal magnetic field resonates with it, then your respiration field, that personal space in which you live and breathe, absorbs the pure etheric energies of the divine radiation that permeates the universe, enabling us to attune ourselves more and more to the voice of the silence, to the inner Abulban. If we put aside our egoistic tendencies and start listening more and more to this calling from the heart, then through a process of purification and reorientation, the unification of the body and soul can come about. Awakened by the yearning to seek for spiritual truth, a powerful etheric and magnetic attraction with the divine radiation emanating from that spirit spark element within us leads us on our spiritual path. The power behind this is our faith, our belief that there must be true, eternal spiritual basis to our life, and an inner knowing that this is the direction we must go. This faith is an unshakable trust, supported by soul power, a firm ground for the things that cannot yet be seen nor possessed, and causes the orientation and focus of our life to attune to the soul in all we think, feel, and do, leading us to a new attitude to life. The purpose of the School of the Golden Rosy Cross is firstly to strengthen this connection, to bring together those who are like-minded and like-hearted, and align their soul orientation with the eternal divine light emanating through this living body. It is logical then that the divine element within us is awakened by the magnetic law of like attracts like, and then it will recognize and be drawn into the one body that is of the same essence as it. That is the living body of the spiritual school of the Golden Rosy Cross. Anyone who recognizes the Gnostic power field and feels within themselves a harmonious vibration with its source can therefore be guided by it. The living body of the spiritual school of the Golden Rosy Cross is a working place, an alchemical laboratory in which its pupils are engaged in a process of transformation. Having established the connection between this living body and the microcosmic spiritual nucleus at the center of one's being, the seeker begins the alchemical transformation of the three centers of consciousness, of head, heart, and hands, by putting this into action in their life. This then leads to the transformation of the four bodily aspects, the mental, astral, etheric, and physical, resulting in the transfiguration into a spirit soul being. It is the sole aim of the School of the Golden Rosy Cross to lead a seeking soul to spiritual reawakening and purification, providing the seeker with the spiritual support and guidance needed to progress on their path of transfiguration into a spirit soul being, the true human being. The path of transfiguration is described by the spiritual school in 7 steps, 7 rays, or 7 aspects of the sevenfold divine radiations. We hope that the spiritual light may guide you on your path to inner soul transformation. And just a reminder, before we start our exchange, that for those who feel the inner calling to experience the path to inner knowledge walked by members of the School of the Rosy Cross, we will have a short discussion tonight after the exchange, at the end of our inward journey, about what it means to be a member of the School of the Rosy Cross.
We have a hand raised.
Yeah.
Gokul Menon. If you mute yourself, you are able to then speak with us.
I'm listening.
Okay, we can hear you now.
Yeah, I was listening.
All right. I'm not sure if the person that had their hand raised could get through, but anyway. We have a question from someone in the chat asking, can you explain the 7 rays?
Okay.
Can we explain?
It's one of the fundamental, that's not the right way to put it. The liberating teachings of all time have talked of 7 rays of the divine, and yeah, I'm not sure that they're actually specifically itemized. Do you know, Dario?
I think it's something we can notice, in the, for example, when the light splits, it splits in 7 different colors.
Mm.
And that's a fundamental characteristic, of the light. And so when the light which we speak about, which is not just the natural light that comes from the sun, but it's a light that comes from the spiritual divine principle that gives life to everything. Well, as this light comes in contact with with a lower vibrational field, which is our nature, then it splits in 7 different aspects, and each of these touch us in a different way. Now, these 7 characteristics, the 7 aspects, we can see them also in the 7 chakras of the human being, the 7 main chakras that go through the spine, and the caudal spine. And again, they represent 7 different forces which animate and and drive us in our manifestation, in our life, in our relation with the world and with ourselves. And when we refer this to our life, we can see that at each moment in our lives, they can be experienced in a different way because our point of view, our consciousness changes, evolves, or just matures. And the same, I would say, for humanity as a whole. So as humanity goes through history and through different developments in culture, in its understanding of the world around us, the cosmos, well, in different ages, a different aspect of this light comes to the fore. And, we are now in a stage where, we speak about Aquarius, the Age of Aquarius, so the 7 links with the 12, just to make it a bit more complex. Well, we're in a stage where everything is being revealed because everything is coming to a dematerialization. And we can see that in the structures that govern our world. We can see in politics, in religion, all the structures that were solid, that had a solid foundation in the past centuries, are now coming to a situation where it's almost impossible to keep the status quo. And with this dematerialization comes a new understanding, hopefully. And this is really the task for us, is to connect ourselves not just to the ray as we are now, but to transform ourselves so that we can understand, the ray that touches us, but the 7-fold light from a higher perspective, from a higher consciousness. And the school proposes not to just build on what we are, not just to make ourselves more, enlightened or, have a better mental understanding, but to completely reverse our consciousness. And perhaps this, to me, this has always been the difference, that a true spiritual school is kind of the indicating factor, that is not about making ourselves, more and more the center of everything, but it's about making the other one, the true essence, the true spiritual essence in the human being, the new focus of the consciousness. And I apologize for going on perhaps a bit longer than intended, but it's not an easy subject, obviously, and it's something that really can only be understood if it's lived through in our lives. And I saw that there was a friend. Yeah.
Andrew, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Just to add to Dario's explanation, we are in the age of Aquarius, and as you know, Aquarius is the water carrier, and he's pouring water, which is a symbol of the Christine or the Christ radiations. And the interesting thing about that, he's pouring water out to everyone. It's not individual. It's not my or your cup that receives the Christ radiations, but for everybody. So this is the most propitious time. Now the 7 forces are divine forces, so we can't really speak about them. The first one is the will, second one is love, third one is intelligence, fourth one is harmony, fifth one is wisdom, next one is dedication, and the last one is divine action. Because it's no good having all the theory and not putting them into action, the deed. So we can be a professor of occult knowledge or religion, but unless we put it into the deed, it's just another idea. So that's the 7 aspect. It's like 7 is a very interesting number. The thing that comes to mind, and probably it's in some of your minds, has anyone actually walked the path fully? And, you know, we can look at Jesus and Buddha and say yes, but we've maybe got a long way to go. But has anyone, they're called bodhisattvas, you know, and they come back to tell us that there is a path and it can be walked, because it seems a very hard and long distance to walk. But yes, it has been walked. And these are the bodhisattvas.
It will be hours and hours to say on that, but
Well,
we'll open up the discussion. Yeah.
Get into a conversation about different vibration levels and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's a big subject. We don't have any questions right now.
I'd just like to go back to something that Dario mentioned earlier, was that the focus, and because throughout the series of inward journeys we have talked about that as a human being we have those aspects of the 4 personality bodies and the 3 consciousness centers, but what the school, like Dario said, doesn't want to accentuate those or put those at the fore. The whole idea of the school's philosophy and practices is to actually allow the rebirth and the reawakening, reconnection with the spirit spark in our heart, which a seeker has. And if you can remember back to the picture that had, you know, the man, and it had the center with a light force in its heart, and that is where the divine rays touch us. So first you have to have an awakened heart, then you can experience that in your physical and astral and mental state. But it's not to make your personality the key thing in your life. It's actually the opposite. It's a fundamental reversal on the whole way that most of mankind lives, with their the ego, as the dominant factor. Whereas the school's philosophy is that spirit spark has to take the lead and has to show us the way.
Silence is can be precious, but can also be source of tension. Sometimes we can be scared of silence. It can make us uncomfortable because we don't really know it. You know, we are used to noise more than silence. And one of the themes through the inward journey was the power of the mind, of the silent mind. And well, how do we get to the silent mind? You know, what's the path that leads to the silent mind? Is this something we practice? Is this something that we can exercise? Or is this something that we need to approach from a different point of view? Almost like a different state of being from what we are used to. And fun enough, usually we start on a spiritual path or on a quest when a little voice in ourselves touches, you know, when something beyond all the noise of life, beyond all the worries and you know, all the activities that we engage on a daily basis, but something beyond all that keeps whispering in our ear that something is not right, something is missing. And as the presentation was saying, we then start looking, you know, outside of ourselves usually. Start looking, you know, how do we fill that gap? How do we fill that there's something that is missing. Then maybe we engage ourselves in politics or in humanitarian efforts. We look at helping others. Could be ecological, volunteering, or we maybe start looking into sciences or the occult. But all these efforts still are drawing us out of ourselves, and perhaps the answer is within ourselves. And if we get to that point, to that awareness, then the question rises up. Well, how do I get in contact with that something? Can't really put a name on it. Can't really pinpoint it, but it's there. It's vibrating. It keeps me, keep stirring within myself. Well, how do I make a link with it? Because I recognize that, that's the way. And the school, or a spiritual school, has the task of not of teaching us how to get in contact, not to create that contact for us, but to help us, to support us. And we've spoken about the power field and a living body in the previous explorations. Maybe we can go a bit deeper into that. But I see Dennis has his raised hand up.
Can you unmute yourself, Dennis?
Yes. Hello.
Good. Okay.
I thought maybe a different voice might help. Let's see. The trust we might talk about, like Dario was talking about silence and voice, and the way that anybody seeking for some non-material reality, which we don't experience, but we sense that with our intuition there must be something else guiding humanity in its different endeavors. So can we see a theme in that? Well, when we go to try to see what each one's doing, we are expected to just listen. And we kind of build that up as an expectation. We go in, we see there's a ritual going on, it happens every time, and you're just passive, basically. It's a bit like, well, turn the television on and all the programs are there and you just have to eat it up, or a bit like a restaurant where you just, the menu is decided for you. But, well, now we can go in and perhaps make our own food in that restaurant and decide for ourselves. And that takes a certain amount of inner awareness, decision making. How do I react to things? It's my own volition that's important, and that needs to grow within this realm, which won't be talked about in common culture. These things are there in the background, waiting for opportunities for seeking human beings, and all we're bringing in the teachings and the application of them, which is a personal and internal exploration, because obviously you've said, well, what's on offer in the material world is not enough. I don't feel it's taken me to the depths of understanding that I could go. So the method is internalized, and we enter that inner landscape and find out with using the consciousness, which again is a mystery if you go to the common culture pursuits through science and philosophy, the academics, that's their professional work. They don't know what that is. They have to put their hands up and say, well, it's evaded our methods. And we, by using that consciousness, we can explore far more than the person outside, trying to see how, lift up the bonnet or the hood or whatever you call it of a car and see how the workings are. And then, well, that doesn't actually give them anything definitive to say. So it's an inner working, and we might want to, start a journey, and the method could be like a map. We lay out certain things, and then obviously the first step is the most important, but there are areas maybe on the map which are more distant and you don't quite understand them, but that doesn't really concern you when you're taking your first step, does it? So it's that kind of exploratory sensibility that we invite people to engage with. They can find their own understanding using what has been given to them as the consciousness. And that is something whereby there's two aspects to it. We can say, well, in the world we experience everything, and that gives us consciousness, that gives us awareness of our surroundings and how we interact. But the animal can do that because we're just surviving to do that. Well, does the same, if you like. It's a level of consciousness. But we have the unique capability of expecting that consciousness while having that consciousness. And that is the consciousness more, because that's what we're going to use to link once again, to reunite with the spirit. And that's the ultimate goal, which we shouldn't forget. But we are past in different ways, and affecting that consciousness is many things, and many of those things are actually deciding for us what we actually want to do. And the freedom of the conscious mind just isn't always understood. The body is making many decisions for us, and that's something we need to actually separate so that we do become fully independent in our awareness of how we look at life, how we deal with our life. Are we dealing with it as someone seeking spiritual awareness, or someone who's just still motivated by the ego? And that's the ego. So that's something that, like Rumi says, is the veil between man and God. That's so we need to bring it down to where we are at the very beginning and start to have that introspection. The other technical aspects will fall into place as and when is necessary.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. That's really sums up quite a lot of what these whole series of inward journeys has been talking about, and that you have to start with that process of inner disquiet, and follow it through in self-knowledge to find, the spiritual basis, to listen to that inner voice, that and trust that inner voice. And sometimes it's actually the trust. You can feel disquieted by a lot of that goes on in the world, but sometimes it's not trusting that what you are wanting to follow is actually true. So it's a lot of self-seeking within yourself, not for selfish reasons. Yeah, and that sort of reminded me of some questions that we often get asked in these inward journeys, and in other, when we used to have face-to-face, it sounds like such a long time ago now, doesn't it? Used to have face-to-face meetings, and that's like, what is the difference between soul and spirit? Because like Jenna said, that the key is to connect our soul with the spirit. What is the difference? And I'd just like to open that conversation with saying that the soul is what enlivens us as that animal, or as the physical body with a mental and etheric aspect, but the soul is the carrier of that enlivenment, and the consciousness is one of the aspects of it. And so if we can expand our consciousness, make a new awareness of our consciousness based on how we actually fit into the world, and look at ourselves in self-observation as to what's pulling my strings and who is actually controlling what. And then you'll actually learn about how you fit into the world. And of course your soul is can be altered, I suppose, by the answers that you then find for yourself. So all of the endocrine system and your heart, the blood, the carriers of everything that ensouls you, and gives you the energy, you know, to be yourself, is then taken up in the process of walking the path at the same time as you are finding the answers to those inner reflections. I don't know if anyone else can describe it a different way, but
in the beginning, the fall, they talk about the fall in consciousness, and we've completely forgotten that we're all children of God, and we're all separate beings, we're all individuals. Well, we're not, because if we were originally divine, what are we now? And people say, well, I want to become enlightened, or I want to do this, or, you know, we have to get rid of the I, because we're children of God. We come from this divine will. So we have to unify our will with the divine will, because obviously there's a divine plan. I just can't see why there's this creation and we're given 70 or 80 years of our own will, you know, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow, and forget about where we, or what the purpose is. We're here. And I see the difference between spirit, which is that divine plan, and soul, which is our will, you know, that gives life to what we want to do. Individualism or separateness. So we really have to watch out how we operate, and this is our observation, and this is what school's about and what life's about. And this is why we call ourselves pupils, because we're pupils until our last breath. We're learning. But it's like the prodigal son. You know, we become like him. We're sick of eating with the pigs, and we want to go back to the Father's house. So we find others that are like, and we help each other. So, you know, we're a unity, we're a group unity. We're all connected by this nucleus, that dot in the middle of school symbol. It's like saying, well, we live in Australia and Tasmania is an island, but it's not an island, it's connected. You know, it's just separate because of this illusion of water. But we're all, you know, we're all connected. But our mind only sees the water and Tasmania's island separateness, but we're not. And when the higher consciousness or the higher mind sees that we're all connected, so it's not just our fellow human beings, it's the animals, the plants, the rocks. I'm sure some of you had that sense of that, you know, everything is connected. It's that we were originally co-creators with the divine, but we went our own way, and look what's happened.
Perhaps we can thank everyone for the presence so far, and you know, it's important also to know that information is not just verbal; it doesn't just pass through the verbal communication part. And so whenever people meet with a similar longing, you know, in their heart, then something a similar energy gets attracted in that meeting, and that's the important work that we do, through these meetings as well. So thank you again.
Thank you, everyone. Have
Yeah.
you got something to close with, Nari?
No. No, I was just going to say, if you would like to turn your mute off, if that makes sense, then it would be easier for us in this next session to actually discuss things rather than formal sort of questions via the chat. 7 aspects of the 7-fold divine radiations. Membership of the school constitutes the first aspect, and it is a period of orientation through which you can decide for yourself through self-observation and reflection and attuning yourself to the inner spiritual call, whether this path is right for you or not. Therefore, the key task of being a member is to gain self-knowledge, for only in this way can the objective of a new consciousness be attained. How does one obtain self-knowledge? Through self-observation. Through observing ourselves objectively, examining our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, our reactions, we will note the positive and the negative, the subjective and the objective, and consider whether they are in harmony with the vibrations of the inner voice, without forcing knowledge, and discern the sources of that noise that remains in our mind, thus enabling us to unmask the workings of our egocentricity and thereby the obstacles to our connection with the light ethers of the living body. In this way, we become receptive to the gnosis, leading to the unification of the head and the heart and the birth of a new consciousness within us. There are no requirements in being a member, other than you should use the opportunity according to your own inner longing. You will find it of a great value for your spiritual path of experience to familiarize yourself with the writings, philosophy, and teachings of the school through the public activities, the videos, meetings, services, and conferences held by the Golden Rosy Cross. During your period of membership, we hope that the spiritual light manifested in the school of the Golden Rosy Cross will guide you to a deeper understanding of the path of inner soul transformation, leading you to self-knowledge based on the impulse of the spirit spark, that rosebud that dwells within you. Through this self-knowledge, you will recognize the necessity of the inner longing for self-transformation and the necessity of participating in the power field of the living body, working for the spiritual liberation of all of humanity.
Thank you, Nari.
That's it.
Open it up to questions. If anyone's got anything they want to add, or how to become a member or anything like that?
Hello there.
Hello.
Hello.
This is Prahlad calling from Nepal.
Hi.
Greetings.
It needs to be a member.
What it means, did you say?
Yeah.
To be a member.
Yeah. Okay.
What it means, well, on different levels. First of all, it means joining the school.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
I said what it needs to be a member.
Thank you.
Okay.
Needs.
Well, on a personal level, you need an interest in the, in the teachings of the school, in getting closer, or an interest in knowing more, perhaps, about the teachings of the school. Obviously, we have many videos online, we have many activities like today, but to experience what we call the power field of the school, one needs to link itself actively, not just by watching a video here and there. And this experience comes, in their interaction with the different activities, with the pupils and members of the school. And so that's the first basis. So we don't invite anybody to become a member as such. It's always the person that is seeking something in their life that approaches, our school, but any other spiritual school, and with that inner decision, with that inner question, what is the school and how can I know more? On the practical level, on our website, maybe we can show here the slideshow, Joseph.
Yep. Okay.
There is a new section which is
that the page? You can see there
becoming a member.
Becoming a member.
And there is an introduction into what membership is, which obviously today we're doing by voice. And then there is a questionnaire, a simple questionnaire with, where you would put your contact details and just tell us about, your experiences a bit. How did you come in contact with the school? A simple questionnaire. And from there, obviously we will receive your application, and then we would invite you, to them participate in the activities, in the members' activities. And members in the School of the Golden Rose Cross have the possibility of participating in all activities, whether they're for members or pupils. And we have monthly, we're speaking about different types of activities. Every month we launch a different video on a certain topic, but we also have contemplative readings, which are more for self-reflection and touch perhaps more on the heart aspect. And then we have whole services, which might be held in a temple of the Golden Rose Cross. We have temples in many countries. As far as I'm aware, not in Nepal, but that's not a problem. Obviously, things are changing worldwide, and so the school also had to adapt. And we've created different settings. We've opened our services to to online means, but these still happen within what we call power field of the school. And maybe the question comes up, what is a powerful field? So you don't need anything else than your own inner.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. You see, I have been a member of a meditation group, transcendental meditation, initiated by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and so I've been practicing meditation and other breathing exercises. That's why I'm interested in more in this aspect, a silent concept, the silent mind or the silent mind. I'm very much interested. But does this have any inclination towards Christianity or any religiosity or something like?
Yeah, the school recognizes that there are universal truths, and the universal by its nature. It's a universal truth, and therefore it is proclaimed in most major religions. There is an element of that truth in it. But of course, the way it is put into practice in most religions has been clouded and distorted over the years. So earlier, Andrew was talking about some of the liberated souls who come to help us in our path and have actually walked this path in their life, such as Buddha, Jesus the Christ, and there are others that throughout history, such as Hermes Trismegistus in Egypt and Lao Tzu in China, who are highly enlightened spiritual beings that their teachings show that liberating truth. But of course, as your actual question was, is there a religious aspect to it? The question would then be, how do you separate life and religion if you are a true believer in something? So the main difference that the pupils of the school would follow is that they find their truth within themselves, and they don't necessarily need a book, a guru, a master, or a deity to tell them where the truth is. So through that inner reflection, they can find the truth within themselves.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm a little bit doubtful, perhaps because in Nepal, many such circles have influenced a lot of people and forced them into conversion. So perhaps I was a little bit afraid of that. Moreover, yeah, I'm a true believer, but though by birth I am a Hindu, I am, I think, a little bit higher than other believers. I believe so myself, because I don't believe in a single God, a single religion. Rather, I believe in a force in the nature.
Yeah.
As a God, we say Hindus have 33 million gods, but I believe that refers to people. We believe the God lies within ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about when we talk about the spirit spark, and that is what we're referring to.
And actually, you touched on a really good question there, because you're saying that a lot of people you have found, or you've understood, that they have been coerced into changing or being forced. The School of the Rosy Cross does not force anyone to believe anything or to become a member or to stay a member if you then decide that it's not for you after a while. There's no force, there's no coercion. It's a friendly acceptance that this is the path that you wish to follow. And if you have that same soul vibration and feel it, then you're welcome as a friend, side by side. And then if at any time in the future you choose not to carry on, then that's fine. We part ways, and we've had a shared experience. So don't feel that we're going to coerce you in any way.
Okay.
If I can answer here Prahlad's question, because like you, Prahlad, I was 14 years in TM, the Maharishi. So every morning and every evening I did half an hour meditation. So that's 14 years, and I added them up.
Oh.
6 months of my existence was in meditation. Now, when I came to school, I was told, well, we don't practice meditation. Now, your original question was, what do you need? And the answer I would say to you, you need to be willing to change. If you don't change, well, where are you? So I was willing to change after 14 years. I even went to Rishikesh to, you know, at that time, the Beatles and the Maharishi, etc., etc. So I followed him for 14 years. So like you, I know what I'm talking about. But school does not force you, you know. But I was talking to a member yesterday and asked her, well, how are you finding school? And she said, well, I'm changing. And that's all she said. So she no longer argues with her neighbor or anything like that. She saves her energy. And, you know, 2 years in school, and that's the only progress she's made. You know, she's changing. So school never promises you anything because it's up to you.
Mm.
You know, your guru is inside your heart.
Yeah.
It's not
The school acts a bit as a magnifying lens. So that's the support that the school gives us. It helps us into that, you know, effort of self-knowledge. But then it makes, you know, everything bigger, you know, so that we can see better within ourselves. And that can, you know, that can be scary sometimes because, you know, we need to go to the, you know, to the deepest depths within ourselves to really gain self-knowledge. And, you know, those depths are the ego depths, but also the subconscious and the unconscious. But apart from all of that, then there is the knowledge of the true self, you know, which is not the ego, but, you know, you could call it the Atman, you know. And you need to be able then to separate the two. And there's a path, you know, what we could call, you know, one of the steps in the alchemical path, you know, separation of, you know, gold from lead, from what is pure from what is not pure.
What we said in the talks also is objective self-observation. So you're not judging yourself at the time that you're actually looking at yourself. You're just separating what aspects you are within yourself.
Thank you very much for all your responses. I'm by nature more curious, I think, than others. I still want to know what is the objective of the school?
To support
what is the goal? What is its goal?
Its goal is to facilitate, to assist people in reconnecting the inner other one within them, reconnecting with the soul consciousness. So it's a process of transformation and transfiguration of the person or the personality being, so that it no longer acts as a barrier between the spirit and the personality, but allows the spirit to live through them.
Okay.
The total rebirth of the original human being is the reconnection of the soul and the spirit, so that we're not just a material human being, but we become a spirit soul human being. But that's also is a process, you know, and it doesn't need to happen all in membership. In fact, we have membership and then we have pupilship. So pupilship is a further contact with the school. You know, that's where perhaps we start committing more into. So membership is really a stage where a person can get to, you know, and start understanding what the school's aim is, what the school's goal is, and what the path that the school indicates. You know, and does it resonate with me or not? So it's really a first stage of knowing the school, but also knowing ourselves, deciding whether we want to go deeper into this self-knowledge and this transformation.
And everybody will have different ways of approaching their time and membership. You know, there's a lot of people who will like for instance, get most of their spiritual feeding through online meetings such as this. There will be others who get a lot from reading the literature of the book or from reading the online magazine. There'll be some who feel more of a connection to the person-to-person contact, although that can be difficult these days. But so as a personality, you have a lot of different avenues to find out about the actual path that the school shows and opens up in front before you, without even without any, not commitment, that's not the right way, but without any obligation on you. It's purely a state or time in your life where you observe and grow in your knowledge from the school's the input that the school has, and so you're welcome, like Dario said earlier, if you're welcome to access any of that from the website, from the Facebook page, but also if you then become a member, there's a special page that has content for the members. So without any commitment to travel, to visit people, to go anywhere, to anything like that, you can actually find out a lot of the content of the school.
So basically, this is just an initiation of self-awareness.
What was the last word, sorry?
Self-awareness.
A little bit deeper than just self-awareness, but it's,
Okay.
yeah, but that's certainly the start of it, being aware of all your faculties and then how that relates on a spiritual level.
But deeper in that, with self-awareness, you can do it on a you listen to you observe the things in you that suit you or that resonate with your expectation of what yourself is. But we are talking about a deeper level in that, whether you like it or not, you have to be honest with yourself and things that you thought, no, I'm not like that, and in actual fact you find out that that is an issue. You're denying that certain behaviors or ways of attitudes to other people or tendencies that are natural, but they aren't helpful. So it's the process of working on yourself and learning about yourself, your true self.
Well, I'm not doubting the goal of the school or something like. I'm just curious to know.
It's a good starting point.
I think that's what membership is for, I guess.
Yeah.
So, when I have a deeper understanding of the school, and then the nature of this school, the nature of members, then perhaps I can assimilate myself more into fulfilling the goal of the school, or perhaps maybe looking into myself deeper.
That is,
Yeah, that's totally fine. I mean,
that is
you know,
what
obviously here
membership's for.
we're presenting membership as the end of a series of talks with kind of series of explorations. But you know, we're all still free to just participate in the activities that are there for the general public, and these also give valuable insights in the school teachings and what the school aim is.
And on that note, I was just going to say we are actually holding another series of Inward Journeys starting in August. So if you're interested, by all means, they'll be advertised in the same way that you found tonight's. So yeah, there'll be another series of, I think it's 6 again.
That interests me.
Yeah.
Good. Do we have your email address?
I got an email for this Zoom link.
Okay. Yep.
So I think my email address is there in the system.
Must be. Yep.
Sounds good.
That's good. Yep.
So there are steps of being a member. So that means there will be follow-up emails later on.
There's only one step in being a member, and that is to, as Dario put up on that
Register.
screen, go to that website and fill in the form.
Okay.
Joseph, do you want to maybe just put that screen back up so it's got the website page again, please?
Sure.
And then, and as we've said, there's no obligation once you're in that. What's happened?
I shared the link on the chat.
Yeah, see that. So
You have done.
now the next one back.
This one.
Yeah, see up at the top
Okay.
it's got the goldenrosiecross.org. That's the web page where you get to the Golden Rosy Cross community page and then the becoming a member button. Now I've forgotten what I was going to say.
The experience of membership is different for everyone.
Yeah.
Some people are members for a short time and some for many, many years. It's entirely up to you. It's a process of orientating yourself with the school, becoming familiar with it, with the aims and the activities of the school, experiencing those services and conferences and so on and so forth. But primarily of coming to gaining self-knowledge, understanding where you're at, why you feel that yearning or that interest, and then going from there. So
Okay. What
Yeah.
does our school do? Other works, other services? Because earlier there is a mention of the members doing some services or something like.
So I think Dario mentioned before there was we have what we call contemplative meetings, services, and renewal conferences. Did you want to discuss that, Dario?
Yeah, I mean, we can go a bit deeper maybe in the concept of the service. So there is, a service primarily, pupils and members meeting in a temple, and the service is a triple service. So it's a service that we don't do to ourselves, to our ego consciousness. It's a service of an outgoing radiation. It's putting ourselves at the service of that spiritual center within ourselves, the spiritual impulse or the spiritual particle. And the teachings of the school are touched upon during these services. There is a first part, which is a ritualistic part that serves as a summoning of the light. Just saying we're here, light touches, because that's what we are trying to do in our path. We're trying to connect with the light. And then there is a second part, which is the address. So this is where the teachings of the school are conveyed, using different images, using different texts, from, as we said before, from the Tao Te Ching to the Vedas sometimes, to, the Christian tradition, point of views. But all these teachings are not just for our mental activity. Yes, of course, it's important to understand what we are told, but this information, as we said before, is not only a verbal communication, is a radiation that comes and kind of englobes us and takes hold of our microcosm and impels us further on our path. And when many people with the similar aim, the similar longing gather together, well, they create what we call the power field. You can think of many people going to a stadium or to a manifestation with the same kind of pose, the same kind of emotions, and you can see that very often a force takes hold of them, and and you know, when you're in such a group, you can do things that when you're alone are unthinkable, you know, whether they are positive or negative, yeah. But the purer your longing is, well, the purer is corresponding power field will be. And so when a group, and this worked, you know, through human history, whenever there was a group that had that pure longing within themselves to link with that pure light, well, then that light had to, you know, connect the universe. We call it a universal law, you know. It's expressed in the Bible as, you know, knock and you will be, you know, answered. Asking, you will be answered. And so this is the connection that we make during our services, during our renewal conferences. Renewal conferences is a broader experience, if you can put it that way. It's a gathering that we usually have in our national centers, and we spend together maybe 2 days or 1 day, and we go through different services, so 3 services that are linked by a similar theme, by one theme, sorry, and explore the theme a bit deeper than just in one service. But there is also the interaction between the microcosms. Sorry, Prahlad, you wanted to come in? Or?
No, I just said okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
my video is not working, so I want to make sure I'm still here listening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But
And
then,
can I just-
then.
Sorry, just to
go
add
on.
to that, these there's also those services available online on some of the on that members page on the thing. So there are services that you can listen to online now that we cannot come together, you know, physically.
And also because there's
Yeah.
parts of the world where it's just not
Such in
practical
Nepal,
to meet
yeah.
together. So
Yeah.
there's the nearest center to you is probably well, would it be Australia or Europe? Maybe Italy.
Australia.
Probably Australia. So yeah.
So it's not really practical to meet together.
We don't have a national center in India, do we?
No.
No, not
Not
yet.
at the moment.
We've had
Not in
Because the school was founded as primarily as a West mystery school, but obviously things are changing and humanity is kind of going through a change, and the differences that you had 100 years ago are not perhaps there anymore, and we are kind of come closer culturally and in different ways. And the school, had to adapt, and we are, slowly creating a virtual center as such. But the power field is the same, because the power is created by each of us with our pure longing. So it doesn't really matter. And also on the astral plane and on the etheric plane, so the subtle planes of reality, doesn't really matter. Distance doesn't have that same the same validity or the same value as on the material plane. But what I was going to say is also that, the services and the conferences are the impelling, the impulse part of it. But then we return to our life, to our normal, to our day-to-day activity. And this is where we need to apply that action. It's all good and well to meet and discuss things, but in our lives, that's where the school begins, the school of life. That's where we have the 24/7 contact with all the lessons that we are confronted with all the information that we need really comes from our lives. And if there is a transformation, this will be clear through, what we live. How am I relating to the others? How am I relating to what happens to me, to sickness, but also to joy, to joyful experiences? Am I still passively living my life, or something else is opening up the space for a conscious interaction and a new interaction, a new way of, approaching things.
Which is like
And that's
Andrew
all
said
part,
before.
yeah.
Oh, sorry, it was just like Andrew said before about just need a willingness to look at yourself and to be willing to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, I believe life change is just life. I mean, in life, change is necessary. Without change, I think life will be boring, dull. So when there are changes, maybe bad, maybe good, but when there are bad changes, then we can realize, oh, this is bad, so that is good. Or when we have when we have good changes, we say, oh, that one was bad, now this one is good, so we can enjoy good more when we have bad changes. So I think change is so natural and so necessary. Without changes in life, I don't think that there is any meaning of life. Life will be meaningless without changes.
Change is the keynote of life
Yeah.
as we know it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd
So the
agree.
question is,
Yes, they have.
do we cooperate with the change? Do we cooperate consciously? Or are we just a victim of the events? And that's
Are
perhaps
we resisting change?
Okay. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. And yeah, there's no right or wrong answer there, of course. There's just, once again, an observation of how you react.
Yeah.
And therefore, you learn something which actually brings about a change in your consciousness anyway.
Have that inner
Yeah.
realization.
That's true.
Yeah, an inner
Very true.
realization. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
Just to clarify the power field, I've been watching English soccer and they're not playing it with the crowds there. Usually there's, 60, 70,000. And this footballer scored a magnificent goal. And then they interviewed him after the match. And the crowd were there going wild because it was a good shot. And he said it was so strange, the best kick he had in his life, and it was silence. So that's the power field, that's when school comes together. You need that invisible extra that gives you energy and energizes something in you.
I've just realized Dennis has had his hand up for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Can you unmute yourself, Dennis? No, you're muted, sorry. There's something wrong there.
Dennis, you want to say something, but you are muted?
Yeah, I was wanted to cough, so I had to mute myself.
Okay.
It's very interesting about the issue of change. Really, it's at the center of everything that's happening when we live in a duality, and we expect that the world is so solid until change comes, and we're now in a time of immense change because the planet is now experiencing the influences of Aquarius. I don't know if people understand about the cosmic year, but every 2,600 years the different constellations have their influences. And Aquarius is about a reunification on the spiritual level. You could put it in a very concentrated way, in a nutshell. And just to realize that we have all areas of life are exploring now with such energy of what is the truth of our existence. And if we look at the scientists, they've come to a dead end because they realize that there is no such thing as matter. When you really use the highly refined instruments they have, they come to the point where there's just nothing there beyond the subatomic level. We are all energy, And we live within a very narrow wavelength of matter, and some of it is very dense, and we talk about the subtle bodies, but we have other material experiences like, like the color range. We have to really broaden our thinking to understand that we have an aura around us. It's constantly being energized. It's a light body. And if we are linking ourselves mentally with what's put there as a common reality, but beyond that, if we ignore that for certain moments, we can actually sense that our vibrational level goes up and down depending on moods. And this is sort of the duality that we live within. And of course, who better to explain about duality than the Vedic philosophy? So we all are influenced by these insights that are being gained. And so you could say that, like that image we had, the circle and the center point, we're all coming from different destinations in our own lives, but we are going to that one truth, that central truth, which we have forgotten. We've encouraged to forget. But every so often there comes along a beacon which will remind humanity that your source is actually spiritual, and you're already living within a world of electromagnetic energy. And this is what's creating your moods, your perceptions, encouraging you to positive and negative things. So in the school, we always have that knowledge put before us in our services. Remember who you are. Yes, the world is there. Use those experiences, but it's to encourage you really to create that non-dualistic approach and realize that we are spiritual beings, and we've just been allowed to forget that. So we're trying to orientate ourselves. And when we can recall that in our worldly experiences, it always gives us that standpoint that we are actually united. And that's what we want to create, a sense of unity, reuniting, and not separation, not experiencing the world as a subject. And everything else outside me is an object, and I have to respond to that. But no, that we are fully, we can fully reunite with everything, with the striving of humanity. That's what we have to, it's never just for us. We don't just sit alone and experience the silent mind for our own state of mind, just to get us away from the chaos, if you want to put it in that antithetical way. So it's just remembering as we interact with our daily lives that we have a spiritual connection. In the school, we talk about the spirit spark atom, and that is being revitalized. Through that revitalization, by belonging to a power field, that can enlighten us and see the world as it is, and see beyond that, and really truly experience, I am feeling I'm being guided towards a central truth. I'm not just going one way one day and another day going in an opposite direction. I have a direction, a path, a purpose. And over time you will feel that, yes, I feel that I've come from not knowing as much, and this has guided me towards a sense of there is a goal. That is a very strong motivator. So I just thought that perhaps we could bear that in mind, that we're all looking for the same central truth, and we come from different directions.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes, very true.
I hope it helps.
Sorry, someone said something? I was going to say that unless someone has any other comments or questions, but that may be a good point to wrap up this evening's discussion. If we can even take that with us as we go back out into the world and live our life, then that's something that we are that spiritual center. The question is, where do we go from here? So how do we apply that in our life? Yeah.
And of all what we said, I think the important thing that we can take with ourselves is, as the school says, follow your heart. And that following your heart really means becoming an autonomous human being.
Dario?
Yeah.
There are links for other say meetings like this. Can one attend through those links?
Yes. The school does multiple meetings of the same topic, because not everyone obviously can make it within that one time zone. So for the inward journey that we're on now, which is called the transformation of life, there was one actually held our time last night, which was held in a time suitable for like North America or Europe, more suitable, if that makes sense. So we do get multiple, but there's no restriction on what part of the world you can link in from.
When I booked a ticket, it said book 1 day's ticket, so I thought perhaps one can take part 1 day only, but I got links for different days. So
yeah, that's probably because of the time of day around the world it is.
Because of different time zones.
Exactly.
Yeah, and sometimes the times don't make sense. Like it says Tuesday when it's actually Monday in Europe or whatever. Or it's because it's around all the way around the world that it's it's not so easy to work out sometimes. But you made it.
And it also it gives the opportunity for people, if they aren't, for instance, if they work at night or if they work in the morning, then they can link in whatever suits them.
Yeah.
There's no restriction on, like I said before, on where in the world you can link at what time for what meeting. So
Okay, I expect to meet you again then, maybe tomorrow. Do you have on Wednesday as well?
We're actually now going to go on a summer break, or a month break. And we will start with our activities in August again. If you follow the website or our Facebook page, you will see the events coming up soon for August.
But if someone were to sign up as a member, I think that also there's a lot of services and other things on the website that you can then access that you might find useful.
And also the YouTube videos, they're always
available. They're available to anyone, but
Yeah.
the services and that are not. There's services available on the members' site now, isn't there, Dario?
Yeah.
So.
Okay, I'll check them.
Great.
But otherwise, we meet online again starting from very early in August.
Okay.
I'm not sure of the dates yet, but it will be published.
It's Sunday the 9th.
Sunday the 9th. So there's a video released. When is that? Do you know? Is that the week before?
It's the first. Yeah, it's the weekend of the first week of the month.
Okay.
That'll be the first new activity.
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for your time
everyone.
and your participation.
And I guess you all know the www.goldenrosacross.org website. If you need more information or if you want to contact us, that's probably the easiest place to go to do so.
Okay.